In the city of Manila, between the 17th and 18th century, the Holy Spirit of God inspired some forms of community life among women that were connected with the spirituality of the religious orders, who became the evangelizers of the Philippine Islands. The forerunner among them was Francisca del Espiritu Santo de Fuentes. In 1647, during the Spanish colony in the Philippines, a baby girl named Francisca de Fuentes was born to Simon de Fuentes and Ana Maria del Castillo y Tamayo in the city of Manila. She grew up like any other girls who loved to play with her friends during her leisure times. At an early age, her family would observe religious practices such as frequenting the sacraments, praying the Holy Rosary, and devotion to some of the saints. Francisca grew up to be a fine lady, and she was given in marriage approximately in 1672 to a gentleman who, by the inscrutable design of God, did not live long, leaving her a childless young widow. Francisca persevered in mental and vocal prayers so that her house seemed to be an oratory. She was charitable to the poor in such a way that having nothing over, she gave out what was necessary. Many days she used to go to San Juan de Dios, bringing something to eat for the sick, and she distributed and served the food to the poor in the walled city of Intramuros. God inspired her to leave the dress of a widow and take the habit of one religious institute. He was doubtful whether to take that of our Father Saint Francis, after whom she was called Francisca, or that of our Holy Father Saint Dominic, in whose church she used to go for the sacraments. She commended this matter to God very earnestly. One night, while in prayer, the two saints appeared to her, each one calling her toward him. Then, following an inner impulse, she went towards our Father Saint Dominic. In 1682, she took the habit as a Dominican tertiary and chose del Espiritu Santo. She frequented the sacraments in the Church of Santo Domingo with other pious women who, while living in their houses, set good examples of humility and devotion. Among her companions were Mother Antonia, a Creole, also a widow, Mother Sebastiana de Jesus, an India from Pasig, and Mother Maria Ana de la Vega, daughter of a Cebuana. They requested that they be allowed to live together as a community with a life of prayer and the practice of the virtues while continuing their social apostolate. In 1686, their request was approved in the provincial chapter of the Dominican Fathers of the Holy Rosary. It was on January 11, 1688, that the Master General, Father Antonio Cloche O.P., authorized the establishment of the Beaterio. They were placed in the houses of Maria Garcia. However, this did not last long, because the houses were bought by the chaplaincy, and so they returned to their own houses. Mother Sebastiana prophesied that although she and Mother Antonia would not live to see it, the Beaterio would be established. As time lapsed, Mother Francisca was progressively maturing spiritually, and her desire for the realization of the Beaterio also grew more intense. One day, after confession, the Beatas, especially Mother Francisca, pressed again the subject to Father Juan de Santo Domingo, who, somewhat angry, scolded her and told her she was impertinente. Then, with courageous tone, Mother Francisca told him, "Father Prior, the Beaterio will be constructed and your reverence will see it." Father Juan de Santo Domingo confessed that he got confused and could not manage to say anything or question her. However, Father Santo Domingo admitted that everything happened as Mother Francisca said it would, and that he saw much of it. In 1694, before Mother Antonia died, she bequeathed her house to Mother Francisca and the Beatas, which she foresaw the Beaterio as originating from her house. Mother Antonia also left her stores and possessions for the sustenance of the Beatas. Meanwhile, the Beatas were increasing in number. Since the Beatas did not have enough for their sustenance, Father Santo Domingo provided them with a bigger space. Mother Francisca, seeing the oratory, ordered that the rosary be prayed by the community in the morning, at 1 o'clock during the day, and at night. And even at midnight, they rose up for mental prayer. After praying the rosary at 1 o'clock, they had mental prayer, and this spiritual exercise lasted until almost 3 o'clock. Petitions for admissions to habit began to be received from the city. Because of lack of funds for their maintenance, admission was limited. It was on July 26, 1696, Feast of Saint Anne, the Beaterio was established under the patronage of Saint Catherine of Siena. Thus, it was called Beaterio de Santa Catalina, and the Beatas be 15 to honor the mysteries of the Most Holy Rosary. They received Holy Communion. All of them were very much pleased. They did not cease to give thanks to God, particularly Mother Francisca, for seeing realized what for many years she had desired and asked from God with persistence and tears. In the afternoon, the Beatas made their profession according to the rule and constitution which were read to them, and one by one made profession of vows of obedience, poverty, and chastity. After they had professed, Mother Francisca del Espiritu Santo was appointed as prioress, to whom all of them pledged obedience. The construction of a new beaterio to accommodate more women caught the attention of the Governor-General, of which he was not pleased. Then came the dispute between high ecclesiastical authorities over canonical matters of jurisdiction over the beaterio. Such conflict caused Archbishop Don Diego Camacho, Archbishop of Manila then, to issue a sentence of major excommunication to Mother Francisca and her companions, placed under interdict, and no beata went out. Posters were placed at the doors and other places. To avoid scandal, the beatas were left without mass for some days. The Father Provincial dispensed the beatas from their vows and removed their habits. At the oratory where they gathered, crying and sighing were heard as if it was the last day of judgment. With the help of the Dominican friars and Governor Zabalburu, the beatas in the governor's carriage were brought to the Colegio of Santa Potenciana in the year 1703, known to be the Babylonian exile. Mother Francisca suffered the most under these grave trials, but with heroic courage, she and her companions increased their religious life, hoping for victory. There were those who became lax in their religious observance, that they left and returned home. Archbishop Camacho tried to turn the beaterio back to its former state. After some negotiations and understanding about the beaterio among the Archbishop, the Dominican friars, and the beatas, the Archbishop issued a decree of approval. With the help of the Governor-General and the Dominican Fathers, Mother Francisca and 16 other beatas returned to their original home, and having donned once again their Dominican habits in 1706. With the approval of the Archbishop, Mother Francisca and her sisters lived under the rule set for them as beatas. The permit from the Archbishop was dated 24th of the year 1706. The beatas during this time were 15 in number, including a novice, and in addition, there were lay sisters and a girl who eventually donned the habit, and with this, they symbolized the 15 mysteries of the Holy Rosary. In 1706, before returning to the Beaterio, a petition of Mother Francisca was given to Archbishop Camacho, saying that they desired to live in the said Beaterio and to have with them a large group of young native girls to educate better in the mysteries of holy faith, and not only in the ordinary, but in perfect Christian life. The decree of Archbishop Camacho granting the permission was dated March 3, 1706. Thus, the Beaterio de Santa Catalina became the first institution for native girls. It was also in this same year that the Beaterio became the Beaterio Colegio, which admitted native girls, including Spanish girls or mestizas, as identified during this time. The Beaterio Colegio offered instructions in 4 R's: religion, reading, writing, and arithmetic, with music, embroidery, and flower making. After the Beatas returned from Santa Potenciana, Mother Francisca intensely desired to have the Blessed Sacrament in the chapel, and this she asked very humbly from the Archbishop. But he did not grant it, and Mother Francisca did not give up. When the new Archbishop came to visit them, she did it with much persistence, and realizing she could not succeed in getting it, she thought of a passageway to the Church of San Juan de Letran. She was turned down by the provincial and waited for the new provincial, who received it well. She got the license from the governor, from the provincial, and the archbishop. On the feast of St. Thomas of the year 1710, the church was opened and the Holy Mass was sung with solemnity. Mother Francisca governed the Beaterio with great prudence and fidelity to the rule, making the Eucharist the sublime center of the community's spiritual life. Mother Francisca had been sick for many months, and after the works had been finished and the church inaugurated, her weakness increased. She became physically worn out by her perpetual acts of mortification and her continued struggle to secure the solid establishment of the Beaterio. She became ill and was suffering with heroic resignation and humility for several months, edifying everyone with her spiritual life. And on the feast of St. Bartholomew, on the 24th of August, year 1711, she quietly returned to our Heavenly Father, leaving behind her the living witness to her love of God and neighbor. The Beaterio de Santa Catalina de Sena, which lives vigorously as ever, up to this day, as the Congregation of Dominican Sisters of Saint Catherine of Siena. Today, her legacy lives on. The virtues of Mother Francisca are relentlessly being lived by the sisters of the congregation she founded. One of the greatest and foundational virtues she observed was a deep devotion to the Holy Eucharist. The sisters considered this virtue as the bloodline of the Congregation of Dominican Sisters of Saint Catherine of Siena, and the main source of all their ministries, in which all other virtues outflow. As we have seen in the history of the Beaterio, the story of Mother Francisca and the Beaterio is best understood when taken in the context of the history of Christianity in the Philippines. One of the striking figures during the Spanish colonial rule was the clear union of the church and the state. Even when this church-state relationship created an advantage to both, difference between the two resulted to serious disputes and controversies. Thus, obstacles came by adversely, as we have witnessed in the foundation of the Beaterio. However, this did not wane the strength of Mother Francisca to uplift the temporal, spiritual, and moral conditions of the society. Mother Francisca's devotion to prayer life made her persistent and determined to pursue all her plans to build a community in the Beaterio. Not even the conflict between the Dominican order and the Archbishop of Manila, which led to their excommunication, could hinder her from living her vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. The petition made by Mother Francisca in the Beatas in 1706, with a decree authorizing the foundation of the Beaterio, was a concrete expression of her dedication to the mission of evangelization. They desired to have a large group of young native girls to be educated better in the faith and perfect Christian life. This brought forth provision of physical, moral, and financial protection and security to the daughters of poor soldiers who neither had a place to grow up nor be educated, hence establishing the first normal school in the Philippines. At present, the Ministry on Education takes the lead in the apostolate of the Congregation of Dominican Sisters of St. Catherine of Siena, with 26 schools, colleges, and university, here and abroad. Mother Francisca persevered amid sufferings and trials, yet remained patient in endurance, another outflow of her deep devotion to the Eucharist. Her visit to the sick and the poor in the portals of San Juan de Dios Hospital during her time invigorated her compassion and charity that gave way to the healthcare mission of the congregation today. Although Mother Francisca lived more than 300 years ago, her life, virtues, and legacy make a resounding message of the love of God to the present world. Nowadays, moral issues like divorce, family planning, contraception and abortion, human trafficking, human rights violation, and environmental abuse are decidedly based on convenience and personal interest. And yet, the congregation takes an active stand against these issues. Certainly, these are trying times of the Church, and the dignity of all these poor people is under attack. But with God empowering the congregation, the mission to bring them all back to God's embrace becomes stronger every day. We as Catholics can get inspiration and guidance from Mother Francisca del Espiritu Santo de Fuentes. Her discernment with the Spirit enabled her to overcome all obstacles. No amount of distractions or setbacks can deter her from something she knows is the morally upright thing to do. Like Mother Francisca in the Beaterio, our society today must put a stand on issues which should never be given up. Our stand against divorce, same-sex marriage, abortion, and contraception, justice and peace, and environmental degradation are non-negotiable. God's will cannot be resisted. A famous statement of Mother Francisca is our guiding principle, individually and as a church, on issues that we know are what God would want us to stand up for. Yes, Mother Francisca's faith and the perseverance of the Beaterio could show us how to face the challenges of the new millennium. All Christians in any state or walk of life are called to the fullness of Christian life and to the perfection of charity. Doing the will of the Father in everything we do is a concrete witnessing that enfleshes evangelization. This becomes the radical living of our faith today. May Mother Francisca intercede for us in all our endeavors, now and always. This is Maria Sheila Misolis from Santa Catalina College, Ligarda, Manila. Mabuhay!
You had always cared for the sick.